Welcome to the Mashup.
Tell me whether I'm wrong or right. East or west, up or down, side to side. I sit to stand and fall to fly. Of all of my impulsive plans, pop and lock and salsa dances on demand. I follow leading off the map and stop the chatter, scream happily.
Welcome to the Mashup.
Welcome to the mashup. Welcome to the welcome to the mashup.
Good morning, everybody. I am joined today by the illustrious Tarek Alnaga because Sean can't make it. He's actually in jail right now. He has been arrested, folks. I'm pretty sure it's a political thing. The police, the RCMP, issued a statement claiming that they caught him fornicating with a gopher. Now,
there is a gopher problem, if you know, right now. So
there's what?
There's a gopher problem around your parts.
There is a gopher problem, and
Yeah.
apparently Sean is trying to handle it himself.
Right.
Now, this is a gopher, not a gopher hole. This is specifically a gopher. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe we'll have to start doing kind of a reminder that he's locked away at the start of every episode or something like that until this all gets straightened out. But it just seems ludicrous. They're way bigger than him.
I got nothing to say. I really don't.
Okay. All right. So instead of the rant today, so Tarek and I, we have this kind of, I don't know, it's a fun thing we bring up every once in a while whenever something new and funny pops up in it. And it's the whole Bobs and Vagene thing. And so for those of you who don't know, you're missing out. But it's just this ongoing joke about scammers trying to convince girls to send them naked pictures, but with horrible grammar. And then they're always asking for things like Bobs and Vagene. And so Tarek, I am driving last week and I see a semi truck driven by an East Indian guy, as they all are, as is tradition in Canada. And the sign, the logo on the side of it was Bob, but it gets better because it was like this Top Gun logo that just said Bob.
Nice.
It was like basically like Bob Gun.
Just Bob, not the Vagene.
Yeah, just Bob, but like Bob Gun.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like what you'd expect a Hollywood or a Bollywood movie to be called.
Right.
And so I just couldn't contain myself and I'm laughing my ass off. I'm laughing too hard to take a picture. This is how funny this was to me.
Yeah.
You
didn't get asked for your SIN number either, or a special like telecom offer.
Well, I mean, questions, call this number and tell us your mother's maiden name.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like you think about it, like the next time you want to send Bobs and Vagene, call us.
100%. We'll just ask for it. That's brilliant, man. Oh,
yes.
Frick.
So anyway, but typically we start things off with the Coos 6.5 where we point out how screwed up our justice system is in Canada. But we have an update on this. So Chris Carbert has been granted bail. Chris Carbert is going to see daylight for the first time in 3 years. Now, his final bail hearing or his early parole hearing is in September. And so they said that they don't actually need to keep him in jail until then. And so it seems as though things are maybe kind of turning around a little bit. I don't want to get everybody's hopes up too high, but this is good news. Good news. We've been talking about this every week, except for last week. Last week was the one week we didn't because I was like, there's nothing screwed up in the justice system this week. I think they're all just on vacation.
I mean, I think it's just permanently screwed up. If you're an enemy of the state, it's probably the highest order of crime you could commit in Canada right now.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, Tamara Litch is literally the most mischievous person in the history of this country.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. So, the longest, how does she personally call it? The longest mischief trial of all time.
Yeah. And it is.
Yeah.
Like by a substantial margin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
happy America Day, by the way.
Oh, yes. Yes. To our friends in the States and our friends in Canada from the States and wherever you may be, Happy 4th of July. Happy Adios Britain Day.
Absolutely. May freedom forever fly.
Yeah. Now we need to get ourselves on some of that. We need to kick some crates of maple syrup into the Bow River.
No,
But
I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Okay. All right. And if you guys have any community notes or anything like that, hold on to them preferably, or just throw them out right now so we have something to talk about at the end of the day, because we don't have any on the docket as of yet, because Sean has those and he's in jail. Definitely in jail, not on vacation. Don't believe the spin, the hype. He is definitely in jail for having sex with a gopher. And because he's not here today, we can say things like this. If you're liking the show, like it, share it, and let's go Panthers.
100%. Yes.
Okay.
America always wins, and that's what happened at the Stanley Cup Finals.
Well, I mean, just because they've won every year for the past 30 plus doesn't mean they always win.
They do.
Okay, so well, I guess you know what? We don't need to go to rapid fire just yet. We've got a little bit of separation stuff to talk. This is an article from the CBC. From the CBC. I was proud to be Canadian. Now I support separatism for Alberta. So guest submission, more or less, from a guy who's originally from Chilliwack, now lives in Alberta and, well, in Calgary. And they're actually showcasing, rather than displaying everybody as being a fringe minority or a bunch of crazy kooks or whatever else, how they're just out of touch and they're not smart enough to understand what's happening. They just let him write his piece and published it.
Yeah, it's too big. It's too big to ignore now. Now, I don't obviously trust the CBC in terms of painting it the right way. But that being said, it's too big to ignore right now. Like if you look at APP events, they are sold out everywhere. They are packed to the brim. And I just don't see it going away.
Well, I mean, it's funny how the conversation has shifted over the past couple weeks from these are just some crazy, this fringe minority. And then now we've got Naheed Nenshi. I apologize ahead of time. We're going to show this condescending douchebag for just a little bit.
You don't have to pick a side in the decaying conservative movement. You don't have to pick between the Trumpists and the separatists, or the separatists and the other separatists.
Literally 2 weeks ago, he was talking about how they're just this fringe part of the UCP. And now he's talking about how there's multiple factions of separatists.
Yep.
So, the NDP, as we all know, is not a serious party. But moving on from that,
I was just going to say, the thing about Nenshi is he's absolutely tanked the NDP. Like, their polling is garbage. And
I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's great in that sense. And I think they're probably having buyer's remorse right now. And it's really funny because on the inside, the socialist arm of the NDP don't see Nenshi as socialist enough. And so the Sarah Hoffmans of the world and Janice Irwins don't see him as socialist enough. And then on the other hand, like he's completely tanked the party.
He has. And yes, they probably are like, well, I wish we had someone better. But keep in mind that he was head and shoulders above everybody else that was running. Like, do you honestly think that Sarah Hoffman would be doing any of them? What's his Gil McGowan?
Yes.
The guy whose teeth are are NDP colors. Do you honestly think that he would be doing any better than Nenshi in that position right now?
No. If I'm a betting man, I think that they're going to replace him by the next election.
Before the next election?
Yeah, before the next.
With who?
I don't know, and it doesn't matter.
Jagmeet Singh doesn't need the money anymore. He's got his pension.
That's right.
Notley's not coming back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's basically Thomas Lukasik or Jason Kenney.
That's right. I'm surprised Tommy didn't make a run for it. We'll see.
I think he's biding his time. And he seems to be a cautious guy in everything other than international cell phone use. And so I think he's probably just waiting for the NDP to rebrand themselves as something different.
Right.
So that he can come in without too much sticker shock in terms of the change. but that's my I'm guessing this is what's going to happen, but there's a lot of pieces moving around on the
roaming plans for everybody.
Yes. Calgary will be headquarters for new independent agency police service in Alberta. So there's Mike Ellis, head of he's the minister of basically police and safety or some fucking thing like that.
Yeah.
With Danielle Smith, and they're bringing in a provincial police force. And it's interesting because the vast majority of the pushback about the provincial police force has been from Calgary and Edmonton,
who already have
their own, not RCMP police force.
Right.
Hey, we need to keep the RCMP. Motherfucker, you don't even have the RCMP. Well, yeah, but you need to keep them. Why do you care?
Yeah, it's always the urban voter that determines public policy. I mean, this
funny
is
because this is a literally rural policy.
This is a long time in the making. It needs to happen. I'd say good first step, but if I would urge Minister Ellis, it's less talk, more action.
Well, I mean, he's a career bureaucrat, former CPS. Well, not career bureaucrat, but career union guy who spent his career with the Calgary Police Service. So, when you get to the level that he did, it's a lot more about talking and a lot less about actually doing things.
And
I've said that about him.
I fully support the idea, but let's get after it.
Okay. Now, rapid fire. This is new from Joe Warmington. Health Canada deems 400 deaths after receiving COVID vaccine low. And they're basically saying that this is just a small amount. There were 400 unexplained deaths within a month after people getting vaccinated. Now, here's the weird thing about it. You think like, okay, 400 deaths, that's not a zero amount.
No.
But if you go to somebody like Grok and you say, how likely is it that in 2023 with our population and the 81.7% of people who were vaccinated, how likely would it be that 400 of them would die within a month after, like within any random month? And the number is way higher than that. It came up with, there's 879. It assumed that 879 people would just randomly, randomly across the population, 879 people of that percentage are just going to die anyway. So why is this 400 number so low?
Yeah.
Like just in terms of strict probability.
Yeah.
It's technically possible, but the number doesn't make sense, because if it was just regular run-of-the-mill deaths, you would expect a number of more than double that.
Yep.
So what's going on here? And this is like, Marty up north talked about this a lot during the government-imposed lockdowns, where he's like, these numbers do not make sense. But the interesting thing is that I'm not sure if anybody's looked at it from this perspective, is that number is way lower than what you would expect of just, people getting hit by buses, and it just so happens that they die of a heart attack and whatever else, meteorite strikes. There should be, with that population number, almost 900 people dying within a month of being vaccinated. And that number is far less than that. Canada's first PM, too controversial for commemoration, federal board rules. John A. MacDonald is too controversial to be recognized on Canada Day. Now,
I love it. I love how sensitive and snowflakey people are.
And you know what? I don't have a horse in this race. He stopped being prime minister long before my part of the country became part of the country. I don't give a shit.
Exactly.
Now, did you hear what's happening with Sheila Copps?
No.
Oh, this is interesting. So, former Deputy Prime Minister Sheila Copps' firm sues for share of $2 billion federal contract.
Single source?
Yes.
Well,
Single source, international, and the most expensive option, despite the fact that there was a local manufacturer in Vancouver who all those little tests that everybody was taking and the blue-haired people were freaking out about, that was all of the ones in Canada came from her as a salesperson reaching out, not lobbying. And so she's kind of put herself in a catch-22 with this statement of with this lawsuit, because she said at the same time that she wasn't registered as a lobbyist. She, to the best of my knowledge, is not currently registered as a lobbyist, although it doesn't really matter at this point. At the time, she was not registered as a lobbyist, despite the fact that she was actively reaching out to government officials and members of parliament and cabinet ministers to get this contract for this company. And then the company stiffed her. They didn't pay her because they're saying, well, she was a lobbyist. And so she's saying, you guys owe me this money. And because we agreed to a certain percentage of the sales. And then they said, but you didn't register as a lobbyist. And so for her to have a valid claim to the percentage that she's trying to sue for, it means that she had to have been a lobbyist during that. And she's trying to find this gray area where she says, technically, I was a salesman, not a lobbyist. No. If you're calling Anita Anand and saying, hey, it's Sheila Copps, former Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, I've got a contract you want to sign. You are not a salesperson at that point, at that level. You are a lobbyist. And so if she wins this thing, then it means she can't win it without being a lobbyist, in which case the contract was void, because you can't have anything illegal in a contract and have it binding.
Like active. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she just put herself in this idiot catch-22. But it's funny because it talks about how she's like this outspoken, retired politician who still remains outspoken on current events. And somebody just happened to, I don't know if it was in response to this, but somebody liked this tweet I had from like 5 years ago the other day. Oh, and it's got the freaking, I don't even know how to get rid of that.
Fair.
But Sheila Copps is your great grandmother's brother who shows up for Christmas dinner, pours himself an ice cream pail of vodka, rants about sneaky gypsies, falls asleep before dessert, and the whole time you're just surprised because you thought he died in 2011 or something. And that's a pretty accurate way to describe her, aside from the fact that apparently she's also put herself in an idiot catch-22 about this lobbying thing. Okay. Paramount has agreed to pay Trump $16 million to settle the 60 Minutes lawsuit over the deceptively edited Kamala Harris video.
Yes.
So that's interesting. CBC is in the middle of court litigation over.
With your money.
Let me make sure. What's that?
With your money.
Yeah, with our money.
Yeah.
So they had. This is, let's see here. An independent investigation concluded that a CBC director engaged in harassment. He was suspended without pay for a month. His directors association, a union, filed a grievance. Given the nature of the case, CBC asked the arbitrator hearing the grievance to order non-disclosure, non-publication, and non-dissemination of the names of witnesses and anything that will allow them to be identified and a holding of the investigation in camera. They wanted a publication ban on the investigation. So CBC is being sued right now. They wanted a publication ban on the investigation, but they lost it. So I found out about this from Canadian Taxpayers Federation, who found out about it from Blacklocks. Now, this one's kind of fun. Speaking of Alberta, coming back to it, former Alberta UCP MLAs announced plans to revive Progressive Conservative Party. Now, just right off the bat, it's not MLAs with an apostrophe. This is not ownership of. This is more than one. There is no apostrophe. Western Standard. Come on, guys. If I got to call it out for the people I don't like, I'm definitely going to call it out for you. So Pete Guthrie happened to notice at some point that when the United Conservative Party merged with the Wild Rose Party, they forgot to retain the legal name rights of the Progressive Conservative Party. And so this is what he's calling it.
That's amazing. That's you know what? It's interesting because this could be risky in 1 or 2, maybe even 5 Calgary ridings.
How do you figure?
Well, they're not left-leaning enough to, the old vote split issue of 2015. I don't see it an issue in rural Alberta, but in 5 or 6 urban ridings in Calgary specifically, you're at risk here. Like I think Klein, Heritage, Fish Creek, those were all stronghold PC ridings in the past.
And so you think that the naming convention is going to be enough to tip people over?
And I think for those who, in their own minds, think that the UCP is far too conservative, and then look at the NDP as far too left, this might be your splitter in those 5 or 6 ridings. Now, if the election was repeated with the same results, which it will likely not, of 2022, then you're at risk here. Because keep in mind, it was 2,000 votes in Calgary that was the deciding factor for the UCP,
and that's cumulatively. That's not one riding. It was 2,000 votes across the whole city was enough to get the UCP the win.
Yep.
And it
I feel like this may or may not be a spoiler. We'll see. What is interesting though is, do you really want to associate with yourself with the Redfords and Lukaziks of the world?
Well, maybe that's where Lukazik's going to try and find a home. Although I don't see Pete Guthrie and what's his name from Sylvan Lake really having a whole lot to do with this other than just the naming convention.
Agreed. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I don't know if you know this, but Canada no longer has a digital service tax.
Apparently so. Yeah. After a little bit of maybe a tussle.
Yeah, it was actually really funny. So for those of you who don't remember, we talked about this in the Mashup when it was first happening, the digital service tax, where basically the Trudeau Liberals decided that for Google to be a search engine where you could find news articles, they needed to pay the news companies to send them to their website. It's like basically if a billboard company had to pay the companies that advertise with them to put their stuff up on a billboard, was basically the gist of the Trudeau argument, which is nonsensical and insane. And Trump said this is way too much because it's all American companies. And so for any ongoing trade discussions, this was going to be a non-starter. And so now, in response to this, Mark Carney has dropped the digital service tax right after saying that he was not going to bend on it at all. He said, I'm not going to get rid of supply management for dairy, chicken, and eggs, and I am not even going to consider getting rid of the digital service tax. And then Trump said, okay, well, I guess this negotiation's over. Peace out. And then he said, well, wait. Okay, we'll drop the digital service tax. And so now we don't have the bad digital service tax, but we also look like a bunch of pushover idiots on the international stage.
Yep.
So it's a mixed bag. And then, of course, you've got the usual liberal apologists who will just say anything, no matter what the liberals do. Yes, this is correct. Yes, this is important. Mark Carney got filmed kicking puppies. Well, you know what? He really cares about the cats.
It's unbelievable. Like, there isn't a tax the government doesn't love, and it's only when push comes to shove that they have to take it out.
Yeah, so Trump got rid of a carbon tax. He got rid of the digital service tax. Yeah. Trump is basically the best prime minister Canada's ever had.
He's making life more affordable in Canada. It's amazing.
Yes, and Alberta has a $8.3 billion surplus. in 2024. So that's kind of news. Now, a pragmatist might say, okay, well, let's pay down the debt, or even what if we tax people less? And they did, in their defense, they did announce a modest tax cut right on time, right halfway through their mandate. So not early on when everyone's going to forget about it, but halfway through the mandate so that it's still going to have, it's got enough time that people will have saved money in their taxes by the time it goes to vote, but not so early that they have to miss out on the revenue it would have otherwise had. If I was to look at this completely cynically and say that this was a strategic decision rather than a political strategic decision rather than doing what's right for the taxpayers, I would have pegged roughly this exact date as when they would do it.
100%, or even a year later, to be honest. So get closer towards the end of the mandate. So it's pretty fresh.
Do you think the announcement is going to have more impact, or the $1,500 that a family is going to save?
Oh, the announcements for them.
Yep.
Like it's advertising. It's 100% a political move.
Okay, now this is an interesting tweet from some random asshole. So after 10 years of Liberals in Ottawa, Alberta has never been richer? The counterpoint I would give to this is that Alberta would be a lot richer without the last 10 years in Ottawa.
100%.
And you can't really argue it after all of you jackwagons spent months saying, I had COVID, but I had mild symptoms. Thankfully, I'd been vaccinated. It would have been so much worse if I hadn't. If you want to use that logic there, we're going to use it in this situation. Government changing tune on 20% pay hike for Canadian Forces personnel. Basically, they can't provide a date for when the troops will see the raise or whether it will even actually be 20%. So we didn't cover this because announcements don't really mean much without specifics.
We talk about the Canadian voter, and here's the sad part for the vast majority of, and we blame the Liberal government, but keep in mind millions and millions and millions of Canadians have voted for the Liberal government and continue to do so. Military spending is not a voter issue, sadly. And the government knows that.
Not in this country.
No. So, and the government knows that because sadly, the Liberal voter doesn't have a ton of respect for the military. And so they know that. So why bother, right? They'll make some moves right before an election to pretend that they do.
Like First Nation stuff.
But in full fairness, even our side is exactly the same because they know that it's not an issue that wins votes. I mean, it's just they'll make symbolic moves. As we saw our side do it just before the federal election, and but then everybody just ignores it. No, it's again all talk, no action. We still have outdated equipment that's barely working. It's 40 years old. We have underpaid troops. We have a military that's more focused on tampons in the men's bathroom than actual lethal force and defense force. Mm-hmm. Until this voter apathy, until this voter apathy goes away among the Canadian population, and I don't think it will. We're never going to be a serious military country.
As frank as that is, I can't find any fault in it. So this one's kind of interesting. On a lighter note, now we're starting to get into the goofy stuff. Keep babies, high-risk Albertans away from stampede due to measles, doctors caution. So we're back at the let's all be scared of the latest disease and let's not go to the stampede because we're scared of the latest disease.
I'll tell you this much, considering the weather outlook for the next 10 days for stampede, which looks incredible and pretty good. I bet you Stampede's setting records of visitors this year. So who cares? Let them say what they want to say.
Okay. Quebec language watchdog now says it's okay to use Go to support Habs and other teams.
How very kind. And how very on brand.
What a magnanimous gesture from the language watchdogs in Quebec. So for those of you who don't know, there is literally a government organization that decides what you can and can't say in English and French in fucking Quebec.
Yeah.
And
how very on brand.
And they have now determined, they've made the determination that you can say go Habs go, which is completely pointless because nobody does because they fucking suck.
Right.
Okay, now this is an important update from chess.com. Yesterday, we were informed that Twitter user by the handle of Chess God encountered a game-ruining bug. He contacted us saying, "What the fuck is this bullshit?" kindly informing us of the issue. A pawn has seemingly learned how to capture another pawn directly next to it. This is, of course, bullshit. No way could a pawn capture a piece like that. We apologize to anyone else who has encountered this horrible bug, and we won't stop until every last cheating pawn has been brought to justice.
Brilliant.
Yeah. This is exactly how you handle this sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Canadians reclaim Maple Leaf flag amid Trump threats.
Here's the thing about this. I've noticed a lot more Canadian flags go up because of an external threat. Where was all that national pride 4, 5, 6, 10 years ago when we were trying to develop resource projects that were nation building, when we were trying to spend on the military, when we were trying to do the F-35 contracts? Where was all that national pride?
Well, the problem is that, and this is maybe kind of a chess analogy, but Canadians aren't great at thinking one or two moves ahead. They really just sort of fly by the seat of their pants, which is probably a big reason why they're so susceptible to mainstream media narratives. And so, it's not, well, what is this going to look like down the road? What's my retirement going to look like? These are questions that people never really ask themselves. And then they end up kind of just looking like jackasses when they're caught with their pants down inevitably. I think this was kind of interesting, though.
Steve, I didn't grow up here, but one of the things I noticed is we don't build patriotism into societal values here. It's almost it's too American of a concept. Oh, the Americans are so patriotic. I kept hearing that when I first moved here, and I'm like, and what's wrong with that? It's almost un-Canadian to be patriotic.
Well, I would say it's not so much that it's un-Canadian as it is that being Canadian typically means doing the exact opposite of whatever the Americans are doing.
100%. Well, to our detriment, by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
100% to our detriment. But as long as we appear to not be American, that works out for us.
Yeah, but I mean, I just want to do like a billboard campaign ad in Ontario saying that every American breathes. And then just let the chips fall where they may.
Oh man, that's smart. That's very smart. That's very smart. Oh,
I do think that the current moment has meant that the Maple Leaf flag has been reclaimed for mainstream Canadians, Hayday says. Flying the flag is no longer raising the same sorts of suspicions that the person displaying it harbors sympathies for right-wing causes. There's nothing ridiculously right-wing about any of it. Even going back to the Freedom Convoy, it was just quit being assholes. If telling everybody to quit being assholes is far right-wing, well, I guess I'm an extremist.
Yep, same.
Yeah. Now,
please don't.
No. We gotta cover this because this is a follow-up. So last week we talked about how the NDP, the non-serious party, was saying that air conditioning is a human right. And the thing about saying that in an NDP context is that as soon as you say something is a human right, everyone is obligated to do it regardless of the cost. Now, a week later, is office air conditioning sexist? Why women tend to feel chillier at work than their male colleagues. And this article literally talks about how HVAC systems were designed for young white men.
I got nothing to say, man.
Now,
I got nothing to say.
Sorry, what part of the world are you originally from?
Yeah, the one where it's a bazillion degrees.
And how much air conditioning is there?
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's ubiquitous. And
yes.
How many of those HVAC systems do you think were specifically designed with white people in mind?
I think all of 0 of them.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, not dissimilar to. Do you have a furnace in your home or some level of heating? No.
Yeah, none of those were designed for people in the Middle East.
Exactly. So yeah, the furnace in my home here is.
It's not designed for people in Africa.
It's pretty exclusionary.
Yeah. So this woman locked her account down, so I can't show the original tweet, but it's probably one of the most incredible ratios I've ever seen. So she had originally shut down replies to it, and then when that didn't work, she locked the entire account down. Last I saw, it had something like 17 likes and 2,000 comments. Right. To celebrate Canada Day is to celebrate settler colonialism, genocide, enslavement, oppression, violence, extraction, exploitation, and attempted annihilation of Indigenous peoples, alongside with 250 years of enslavement of Black African peoples. Today should be an opportunity to teach your family, friends, and children the truth, unlearn, and give back what's owed. Hashtag land back. Hashtag reparations now. Now, this was news to me because I didn't realize that Canada had a 250-year history of Black slavery.
Are we 250 years old as a country?
No.
Okay.
Nope. Right. And there was something like 43 slaves total or something like that in the whole Canada area ever, which isn't good. That's far too many.
That's fair.
Right?
That's fair. Yeah, 100%.
But I don't know if it deserves quite this amount of things to say. And, the colonialism, genocide, enslavement, oppression, violence, extraction, and exploitation, and attempted annihilation of Indigenous peoples. If we extracted them from Canada, where did we put them exactly? And while we're on the topic of colonialism, does that mean that we don't want to do it in a modern sense? Would it be bad for us as Canadians to have one part of the world where all we do is extract the wealth and give them no independent voice in terms of their own governance and have them managed by a bunch of elitists 2,000 kilometers away, 2,000 miles away? Like, would that be bad? If we hate colonialism, should we not force people to be part of a large country that they don't want to be, where all we do is take their money and give it to fucking Quebec? Would that be bad? Would that be bad?
You said it bad. Yeah, you said it way better than I ever will.
So this is the translation, but this is Blanchette, who is my most favorite and least favorite member of Parliament at the same time.
Same. I would argue most effective, whether you
definitely
like him or
most
you
effective.
don't. Yeah.
Yes. He seems to be far more effective than Elizabeth May.
Yes. And like I'll give it to him. Consistent in messaging, right? So
yes, he doesn't really walk things back very often.
He wakes up and he's got one mission, and it's the same mission every single day. And I'll give it to him. He's consistent.
Yep.
He's easily the most effective.
And so here's him.
Pretending that we'll have an agreement in 19 days. If that happens, well, it may not be a wonderful agreement. So I get the impression that that Mr. Carney has borrowed Mr. Trudeau's spine.
He gets the impression that Mr. Carney has borrowed Mr. Trudeau's spine.
Yeah.
Just simultaneous 1-2 punch to the shitty Liberals. And I'm here for every minute of it.
Yeah, absolute savage. And he doesn't care. He, like I said, one mission. He doesn't care who's in office, who's in power, which government, which majority.
Yep.
He gets what he wants.
Yep.
Can you imagine if we had a guy like that for Alberta?
Could you imagine if there was like a party like that at some point and they ran
Shocking.
candidates and
Shocking, yes.
and didn't have a leadership review or a leadership election where the winner just went into like a social media coma and just disappeared? Right. Yes. So anyway, this one's another more goofy stuff. There's lots of goofy stuff this week. Men claim to be women to access bigger trades grants, says Federal Review. So
I've seen this article.
This is from the Rebel, although it was first reported in Blacklocks. Basically, if you were a man applying for a grant for trades like plumbing, electrical, welding, and carpentry, you would get $4,000. But if you checked the box saying that you were a girl, you got $8,000. And so all you had to do was self-identify on this form as a girl, and you got another $4,000. You got $8,000 instead of $4,000, and it was their policy to not follow up and ask difficult questions that people might be uncomfortable with. And then the people in Ottawa were surprised, shocked, dismayed, even that if there was one box on one form that you could check and nobody was ever going to follow up on it, that was going to give you another $4,000, lots of people checked it.
100%.
Go figure. And as far as I'm concerned, until these idiot boxes on idiot forms go away, you need to check all of them.
Just all.
Yep.
Like, yeah. Don't go for it.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I've seen this. It's amazing.
So, you know what? As you know, on the one hand, oh yeah, sure, there's a bunch of up and coming tradespeople who are going to make shit tons of money in their careers, and they lied to our federal government to take $4,000 each. On the other hand, if our federal government is going to be so fucking dumb to set up a situation in which all they have to do is check a box that will never be followed up on, that's not on that plumber. That's on the idiots in Ottawa.
Those trades and ultimately are going to be producers in society. So there's that.
Yeah.
No, they're not going to be takers.
Yeah. You don't really have a whole lot of pipe fitters sitting behind desks in Gatineau filling out forms all day.
Speaking of Gatineau, did you know that it's the headquarters of Parks Canada? Except the largest, or the province with the largest amount of square footage of national parks is
Ottawa or Alberta.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the thing is Gatineau is also head of Indian Affairs, and I think a couple other departments as well. Basically, if you live in Gatineau, you either have a gas station or you work for the government. Like I assume there's probably a couple grocery stores mixed in there.
Aren't the gas stations going away?
Yes. You have electrical charging stations, except they're not. We didn't cover it this week, but another factory in Ontario that was making EVs laid off a shit ton of people because the government money dried up and there's no demand for it. We're going to get, actually, you know what? Let's just jump right ahead to that. Jaguar sales in Europe dropped 97.5% in April after their woke rebrand. And so alongside the woke rebrand, you may have seen the episode where we covered this video.
I did.
But at the same time as them releasing this video with a bunch of weird stuff and strange men dressed as women, they also said that they were going to switch to EVs. And between this woke rebrand and they're switching to EVs, their sales in Europe dropped off by 97.5%.
Yep. I mean,
Jaguar.
I feel like that's a brand that's long. I even forgot it exists, to be honest.
It's made a lot of beautiful cars over the years.
Elegant, low quality.
Elegant, but over the years, a lot of beautiful vehicles.
Yeah.
Now, South Park. So with Paramount is being bought by Skydance, I want to say is the name of the company.
Okay.
So basically just eventually every company is going to be underneath one company. I probably already work for Skydance. I just don't know about it yet. And there's been a few hiccups involved. And so South Park had to delay the release of the start of their new season. And here is their statement. In response to the press release from Comedy Central about the change in premiere date for South Park, Trey Parker and Matt Stone said, "This merger is a shit show and it's fucking up South Park. We are at the studio working on new episodes and we hope to get the fans to get to see them somehow." Now, these are the guys. There was an actual documentary like 5-6 years ago about how they will do an entire episode in 6 days.
Yep. Yeah.
The people who will release an episode in 6 days so that it can be as current as possible are unable to get the premiere of their show on track because of a bureaucratic nightmare involved with the merger of their parent company with another company. Okay, and then here, Paul Abrahamson. The government wastes way more than $4,000 every single minute, so claw back every dime you can get from those idiots. Yes, absolutely. And keep in mind that it's your money.
Yeah.
And Murray says my 2002 T-Bird has a Jag motor.
Heck yeah, that big V8. I think they made a 5-liter V8 it sounded at the time gorgeous.
They still sound gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Although I do like how like some EVs they've got. Shoot, what was that? I think we were talking about
attenuation or something.
Yeah. Well, they've got speakers on the outside of the car to make the sound of an internal combustion engine.
It's like meat tasting vegan burgers.
Yeah, it's basically like Trans Engine. Like, well, actually, you should just call it a Trans Am. Okay. Yeah. More goofy news. You can buy this Massachusetts mansion at auction, but it comes with a squatter.
Amazing.
So this is like the Chiquita Banana Mansion in Wenham, Massachusetts. It's apparently called the White House of the East Coast or something like that. 15,000 square feet, neo-Georgian brick mansion with 22 rooms, including 9 bedrooms, 10 bathrooms, 12-foot ceilings, an indoor pool, an outdoor pool, gardens, 3-car garage, a 2-car garage on 33 acres of land. But you are required to accept the squatter currently living in it if you buy this property.
Wow. I'm assuming Massachusetts is left-leaning. It's a blue state,
probably,
if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
I think so.
So I could see a law like that come out of a blue state.
I mean, in all fairness, though, you've got a 50,000 square foot mansion on 33 acres. There could probably be like 10 squatters, and you'd never even see them.
There's that.
Just every once in a while, you'd be like, "I thought we had more milk."
Did I hear the toilet flush?
Yeah. Oh, so there's that. Okay. Internal reports shows Ottawa doubtful that wildly over budget gun buyback will ever work.
Yeah.
Severely behind schedule, program is projected to cost $500 million for this year alone. This is for 100.
Go ahead.
That?
No, please.
150,000 guns is the estimate that they need to do. So far, 12,195 firearms have been turned in. I'm guessing these are estate firearms.
Yeah.
Somebody dies, and then their family's like, okay, well, yeah, I guess we got to give all these guns back. I guess because nobody else is doing it.
Or Canadians that are leaving the country to live elsewhere.
Yep.
What do you do? You can't give your restricted / prohibited weapons to someone else. You can't transfer them.
Yeah.
So you have no choice but to turn them in at that point, at least to be able to legally enter and exit the country, but leave permanently. So if I'm a betting man, that's the only 2 instances. You're absolutely right. Either estates.
I hadn't thought of that one, but yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Leaving the country permanently. And the sad part is I think this is going to drag out forever. And again, I always mention
it's eventually going to go nowhere. It's going nowhere. No one's going to turn these in. Other than those two instances, and maybe some other one I'm not thinking of. Maybe somebody gets arrested, and then the government says, "Okay, well, we're going to take all your guns anyway because you can't legally have them." And you say, "Okay, well, yeah, cut me a check." Something, a couple weird like one-offs. But this program was originally slated to cost $200 million. It's going to be $500 million this year. They conducted a big eco survey because, of course, they got to give Frankie his pound of flesh. And it's all about trying to frame the government messaging in a way that people would trust it. Because the big issue people have is the program faces a risk of non-compliance stemming from physical, psychological, and logistical barriers.
But here's the thing.
Nobody trusts the government. And nobody's given them a good reason why. The thing that the eco survey found was that people's main hesitance for complying with this buyback program is that they don't actually believe it will affect public safety.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, I harp on both sides here, and I love harping on both sides. This, again, is not a voter issue in Canada, even on the urban right.
No.
The federal Conservatives paid lip service to some, legal gun owners, blah, blah, blah. But they didn't fight this tooth and nail like you would in the United States and vehemently said, no, we're going to protect gun rights and property rights. Because, again, in urban Canada, which holds the vast majority of votes and seats and ridings, this is not a voter issue. And it's sad because... But
they're already... these are the places that already don't vote Liberal.
Exactly. And
so they've got nothing to lose.
That's the sad part and to me, I've always said this, a one policy fits all on firearms laws in Canada will not
anything
and will
in
never
Canada.
work. Why does someone in Raymond, Alberta need to have the same firearms laws as someone in a skyscraper in downtown Toronto? They don't. Now, I'd like to see everybody have the freedom to choose, hey, I can legally buy a firearm or not. But neither side has talked about it. Neither side will talk about it. I don't think you will ever be able to purchase an AR-15 or any sporting weapon ever. It'll never happen.
Interesting. I think the only way that firearms owners are going to win this is by mocking it incessantly and pointing out how stupid and out of touch these people are. The estimated cost for this is going to be something like $24,000 per gun.
Yeah.
This is a classic government situation. $24,000. That's about 100 times what the value of the firearm might roughly be.
Which the funny thing is, too, is who cares? Like, does the Canadian voter care? No, they don't. Because, I mean, what was it? TMX cost 4 times as much money as, exactly, as it was meant to be. And did they care? No.
And then they said, oh, well, they gave you a $30 billion pipeline. No, motherfucker.
Yeah.
You gave us a $3 million pipeline that went 1,000% over budget because you can't manage a project. So you gave us a $3 billion pipeline and you wasted $27 billion on bureaucracy and stupid project management.
What did the Canadian voter do? Reward the Liberal government with 2 seats short of a majority or 3 seats? They don't care.
No.
The Canadian voter is not financially motivated. They are motivated by value, not pocketbook. Values.
It's not even value. It's fuzzies.
Feel. Yeah, exactly. Feels. They're an emotional voter, not a logical voter.
No, and even the emotions are just painted on.
Mm-hmm.
So here, from the Parti Liberal Twitter account.
I saw that.
Darcy Spady est un leader de secteur de l'ingénierie et un défenseur de la communauté qui a des profondes racines dans Battle River Crowfoot. Nous sommes ravis de l'accueillir comme candidat libéral à la prochaine élection partielle. For those of you who don't speak surrender cheese, this is a French tweet announcing the Liberal candidate for Battle River Crowfoot. The Liberals put out a French tweet announcing the Liberal candidate for the Alberta by-election?
Man, when I saw this, there's a couple of exceptional team ropers, and I have no idea if there's any relation from Alberta that are Spadies, and they are down to earth, true rural Albertan conservatives. I don't know if there's any relation to this guy, but they probably have disowned him.
Could you imagine, like, if you had, like the Roy family in Saskatchewan or something like that, if one of them just decided to run for the Green Party or the Liberals,
right?
Just imagine the family, get-togethers after that.
I know. So I have no idea if this Darcy Spady is related to any of my team roping friends, but man,
I kind of hope he is, because it would just be hilarious.
If he is, they disown him. I'll have to ask at the next rodeo. So,
all right. Teresa Tam, Bonnie Henry among Order of Canada recipients.
Are you surprised?
Tam, well, it's totally on brand. Teresa
100%.
Tam is going to get the Order of Canada. Bonnie Henry is going to get the Order of Canada. I guess they could probably give one of them Buffy St. Marie's Order of Canada, since they rescinded it after they found out that she was lying about being First Nations for the past several decades. Yeah. But Teresa Tam, honestly, good on that dude. And Bonnie Henry, we are giving the Order of Canada. Bonnie Henry has been the BC health minister for years. All the safe consumption sites, that's her. The vending machines, that's her.
Wasn't Glory Holes the BC thing?
Yes, too, the Glory Holes. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's...
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Are you surprised?
Okay, well, no, but here's the thing, is that we're literally giving the Order of Canada to somebody who's handed out more opioids than Bill Cosby. The only way this could be more on brand is if they got it from a vending machine and handed it to her through a glory hole.
It's so on brand. It's so on brand. I'm so not surprised. It is so on brand.
All right. Now, here's a follow-up. Last week, we talked about the $258,000 table that was used at the G7 summit that all the leaders sat around for like a minute. And Brian Passafume had asked about it. Well, like, what's going to happen to this $250,000 table? And so anyway, it's going to end up in some random government boardroom.
Yes.
Okay. Transport Canada change forces BC ferries. Transport Canada change forces BC ferries to prohibit damaged EVs.
Imagine that. I mean, for a quote-unquote safety-conscious country, why do we have damaged EVs on the roads, let alone on a ferry?
Yeah, I mean, there's like, let's get 50 lightning bolts bottled up, put them on a boat with a whole bunch of people, and hope nothing goes wrong.
Wait, and wasn't BC the one that just found out that electric ferries weren't going to work out?
No, that was
something
Toronto.
Along the lines. Right.
That was so. What happened
was
that Toronto got about 5 or 6 years into designing the. They were having an electric ferry that was going to go across a couple points or whatever, and after about 5 years of development, construction, all of this stuff, they realized that they hadn't left a point at either one of the spots the ferry was going to go to for anybody to plug this fucking thing in.
I mean, it wasn't necessary, was it really?
I mean, you need a little bit. You can't just run an electrical cord out to the garage if you need an extra couple amps in this situation.
The funny part is it happens east to west. And I mean, ferries or buses, like didn't Edmonton lose?
Edmonton had the
tens
buses.
of millions of dollars.
Yep. Yeah, they spent millions of dollars on, or sorry, I think it was $250,000 on heating blankets to keep the batteries warm enough that they wouldn't immediately die off. And then most of their electrical buses ended up just getting bricked in one of their shop yards because the company they ordered them from filed Chapter 11 and they couldn't get replacement parts. Regina had the same issue. I think Ottawa had the same issue. Richmond, BC had the same issue, and a couple other places, and none of them ever learned. There was a time during the mashup where like every 2 or 3 weeks we were covering a new city, bringing out more electric buses. Yeah. And then at the same time, we're talking about the ones from a year before where they all were not working as advertised and had to get taken out of rotation. And none of them at any point said, we've got roughly similar weather. I wonder if there's anything to learn from other people who have tried this.
Yeah. And, Vancouver, I remember, I'm again, these are all articles I've read in passing, shaking my head. Vancouver got an electric fire engine that had a diesel backup engine on it and would get dispatched with a regular diesel engine because they didn't know if it would make it to the fire site or not.
That sounds familiar. The problem with this stuff is it's the same thing you run into with the Liberal corruption over 10 years, is that there's just been so much of it that it's hard to keep track of off the top of your head.
Yeah. It's what I'll say is this ultimately the Canadian voter doesn't care. So until they do care, the government's going to just do more of this because, hey, we keep rewarding them with their seats over and over again. 4 times in a row now. 4 times in a row.
And it's not just, it's provincial as well. It's federal, 100%. But it's provincial with the NDP in BC. It's municipal with guys like Nenshi, who nobody liked, and yet he kept on getting voted for 3 terms until he was looking defeat in the face and then finally turned tail and ran.
This is on us, too, as the Conservative voters for not demanding accountability. So we've had successive weak leaders, right? So we've had Andrew Scheer, Aaron O'Toole, and Pierre choked in the last 90 days. And we just keep handing them seats because, hey, it's better than the other guy. It's acceptable to be just less worse than the others.
Imagine if you picked your spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, based on the same criteria that we vote for in elections. Like, you just look out there and you'd be like, well, there's one person out there who's less attractive, so I guess this will work. There's one person out there who's less supportive of me, so I guess we could make this work. There's one person out there who
it's a pretty, I mean, if I can openly say this, it's a pretty Canadian value is the bar is low. And as long as mediocre is better than bad, rather than shoot for excellence and ambition, mediocre is better than bad. And that works for most, left or right.
Oh, no. You know, and it's funny because, my knee-jerk reaction is to say, yeah, there's a lot of mediocre on the left. And then I'm like, but there's also a lot of mediocre on the right.
100%. 100%. And this is all of us.
Anybody who wants to show up and do well basically gets edged out of the system.
Yep.
Look at Wyatt Claypool. Wyatt Claypool wanted to run in Signal Hill, and they just said, actually, no, we have decided from Ottawa that you are not going to represent your local people. Well, are we going to give them a chance to decide? No.
He was our collective former MP, and I think they split the ridings, but no nomination races in 5 terms, I think.
You're talking about Blake Richards. Yeah.
So
and he just voted for the dairy cartel bill.
Right.
And so did my new guy Stevenson.
100%.
Like, what the hell is a guy who represents rural? Well,
I'm also very curious to see how I know we're going off topic here, but like I'm also very curious to see
what we do here.
How Pierre getting a seat in Alberta, which we obviously will get by like a factor of 90%.
Yeah, he's probably going to get something like 83 or 86% of the vote.
Exactly. Is how that's going to clash with the independence movement, because now you're an Alberta MP in a very conservative riding that's probably got quite a few of independent supporters kicking around. So very curious to see. I can't wait to. I mean, there was already some fireworks between the Premier and Pierre, and I can't wait for some more fireworks. It should be good.
Well, that's the thing, is that the fireworks actually makes for good policy. It makes for good. thing.
I like
right?
it. I love disruption. I love shit disturbing. I love it.
Well, that's why everybody was so mad about the idea of Poilievre in Ottawa 6 months ago. It's because what do you mean he's not just going to do everything the same way we've always done it?
Yeah, it should be good. Sorry, I got off topic there.
Oh no, that's all good. It's all good. Okay, that's in there twice. So here we've talked about this for the last few weeks. Vancouver man says institutions unable to recognize new Indigenous street name. So the new street name of Shemusqueam, which has all kinds of weird shit in it and doesn't actually show up. Like you can't type it out on a website. You can't do anything with it. And so he can't update his banking info. He can't update his credit card, his like any of this stuff. He's trying to get it all updated with his new address. He hasn't moved, but the street name changed, and he can't get any of it done.
I listen. I keep going back to this is on us. From the 12 years I've been around here, most, not all, but most city councils, including in rural towns, are left-leaning. Why do we continue to elect left-leaning city councils? And if we continue to elect left-leaning city councils, then we deserve this. We deserve exactly what's happening.
So, yeah. Well, the mayor of Vancouver said change is hard, he said, but it's the right change. But you're absolutely right about the left-leaning councils and stuff like that. My community, the mayor was in a local news article last December talking about how things had gone for the past year and bragging about the fact that the town hired 3 bureaucrats. Things are picking up so much in this town that we've got so much work to do that we hired 3 new bureaucrats. Yep. You should never brag about hiring bureaucrats. That should be a last resort. You like, even if you did everything you could to get away from hiring bureaucrats and you eventually did, you'd be like,
Canada. Yeah.
You say, despite our best efforts, the amount of new businesses and new construction and everything like that resulted in us having to bring in 3 new bureaucrats. And so that's how busy things are in this town, is that despite our best efforts, we did everything we could to get away from hiring paper pushers. But even with all of that, there are still 3 new bureaucrats. That would be the way to describe it.
So, but left or right here, the answer to government is more government.
Yeah.
Okay? When have we ever seen a reduction of government, either side?
Oh, it's the Ricky Bobby steak knife. You know, where he says, I can't walk. And they said, you can walk, Ricky Bobby. You just got to get up out of that wheelchair. And he says, you don't believe me? He grabs that steak knife and he stabs himself in the leg. And then he's like, it hurts. I can feel my legs. And they're like, you got to take it out. And then they stab another steak knife in to try and wedge it out. And then they've got 2 steak knives jabbed in there. That's literally the steak knives are Canadian government, regardless of level.
Yep.
But in sad news today, interest in Elbows Up merchandise waning ahead of Canada Day, businesses say. They talked to a bunch of people. One of them said that the Elbows Up merchandise dropped off suspiciously quickly starting in May. And somebody else had said that their sales of Elbows Up merchandise has gone down over 90%.
Oh man, here's the thing. When Canadians were told to stand 6 feet apart, and that the COVID only goes one way down the grocery aisle, 85% of them said yes, sir.
Yep.
And stood 6 feet apart and went one way down the grocery aisle. So when they were told to buy Elbows Up merchandise, they went out.
They did. And then once the election was done, they didn't need it anymore.
No, I expect this to continue to happen as it is convenient.
Absolutely. There'll be some other new, it'll be like, there'll be something about maple syrup or Tim Hortons coffee, or, we're going to double the deficit.
Yeah. and it'll be good for some other reason or what have you. So
Yeah.
I continue to expect this to happen. This is on us.
But it's just absolutely silly, and I've got nothing but contempt for these people. And we were talking about it as it was unfolding. We're like, this is just an election gimmick.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, these
And it
poor
works,
merchandisers who have entire bins full of merchandise that's being unsold.
Yeah.
Didn't
and
see
it's
it
worked
coming.
though. But you know who
It
jumped on the Canada patriotism train? Our side did too as well during the election.
No, it didn't. I've got 2 Alberta flags hanging out front, and I've had them for
Attaboy.
probably 6 months.
Attaboy.
Probably 6 months. I've had them hanging out front, and they never went to a Canada flag.
100%.
Now, this is good. So, Peter McCaffrey calls out Jim Stanford. Jim Stanford shows up on here every once in a while. He is a guy who is a career union economist who gets paid through a slush fund of Shell Economic Policy Institute companies, and it trickles down to his particular one. Here's his graph showing egg prices in Canada and the US from 2021 to 2025, talking about how important supply management is. Here is when you zoom out on that graph, you realize that the reason why he picked 2021 was because that's when it actually got close to being over, right? That's when the numbers actually got close. And if you go back another 6 years, you'll realize that they were half, less than half, almost all the way up until 2022. But Canadian polls are garbage, and Canadian economists, by and large, are also garbage. And when you're selectively just picking the end of a graph or a specific point in time, you got to ask, why aren't you trying to look at all of the numbers? This one's pretty fun. If I can get it to... Okay, here we go. FDNY suspends officer for giving hot girls ride on fire truck as department probes frat house behavior. So this guy's a firefighter in New York, and a couple hot chicks are like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" He says, "Why don't you guys hop in? We'll turn on the lights and the sirens." So he just got these couple hot chicks to hop in the fire truck and drove them around for a while. Now, I'm all for fastidious respect of taxpayer dollars.
Right.
But you got to realize that some points call for exceptions to be made.
Yeah. Oh, well, I don't know. I don't know what to think about this one, but yep.
I think it's great. I think it's like
so many things I want to say, but I won't.
Okay. If you're a young single guy who's a firefighter in New York and some hot chicks try and flag you down in the fire truck, are you or are you not going to give them a lift to wherever they're going?
Fair.
That's the thing.
Oh, man.
Like, this is kind of one of those, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. I could sit here and I could maybe say, you know what, this is flagrant disrespect of taxpayer dollars, and we need to be more respectful of where this money comes from and how to spend it judiciously. But if I was 21 or 23 in that exact same situation, I would have drove those chicks to Newark if they wanted.
Yeah. Oh, well.
All right. And now we get into the happy news. And I don't know what's been, we've been having this issue lately. I'm not sure what's happening. I don't know. Maybe it's technical. We talked to the team last week. They swear it's not them. And I would never put this in the happy news because it is not happy. This is not good news. This is horrible, tragic news.
Here, I'll give this to the Alberta government.
Wait. Let's read the headline first.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Definitely not happy news.
No.
At least 11 Toronto speed cameras vandalized this week. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll give it to the Alberta government. They realized that traffic cameras on certain areas and certain highways were purely cash grabs.
Yep.
Which is funny because the whole city councils are now fighting it and said, we're just not doing it. And it's not in the interest of public safety. It's in the interest of
revenue.
And they've done away with it. I don't think the statistics on car accidents or what have you have changed one bit. But yeah, they've taken them off the road. So I'll give a lot of credit to the Alberta government for doing that. And sometimes, I don't know, like, it's not happy news, but sometimes the taxpayer does have mechanisms of telling the government what they think.
Yes, which
like writing letters, for example.
Yes, writing, like, you should be writing letters to these speed cameras. You should definitely not be cutting them down with a reciprocating saw, which may or may not be on sale this week at Home Depot. Affiliate link in the description.
Yeah, writing letters, I think, is the way. 100%.
Yeah. Other happy news, actual happy news. U.S. college bans transgender athletes from competing with women following swimming furor.
Also, Alberta leads this in Canada.
Yeah.
And I'll give them credit for doing that. And also, I think leads it with only just a couple of other states in North America. So pretty proud moment for Alberta.
So UPenn has basically rescinded all of the trophies that Leah Thomas won and has moved up the people that dude was competing against accordingly and adjusted their records to show that they were, placing in the updated places and giving them whatever trophies they missed out on. And that's good news. That's great news. In fact, here, so a couple girls from the Saskatoon 222's fast pitch team.
Nice.
There is a softball team in Saskatoon called the 222s, and two of them got named to Team Canada. So
super.
Yeah. Congratulations to Kenzie Newman and Elena Demon.
Heck yeah. And from the homeland too, Steve.
Yes, from God's country. And so here's their website, the 222's fast pitch. So,
I love it.
Yeah, good for the 222s.
Heck yeah. Always good.
That's basically it. I didn't see anything popping up in the comments about community notes. I think there are a couple, but Sean had them, and I think the RCMP has taken all of his communication devices and everything like that with this ongoing litigation with him being caught having sex with a gopher. Yeah. So hopefully sometime in the next he wasn't able to communicate with me directly, but he sent out a few smoke signals. Apparently he was just burning stuff in the toilet of his solitary confinement. And if I interpreted the messages correctly, he's hoping that he can be out on bail in approximately 4 weeks.
You're digging quite the hole for him there.
So did the gopher.
Nah. Oh, man.
So anyway, our thoughts and prayers are with Sean as he goes through this difficult time. Hopefully he can get a conjugal with a squirrel or something.
Man, what a rodent.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Tonight, Edgerton Bullarama, 5 p.m. Come get an authentic tint type picture done at the Portraits with Presence booth. Done on a 120-year-old camera. That's pretty cool.
Very cool. And
where's your next event?
If you can get yourself,
if
you can always get to a Bullarama, get to a Bullarama. They're tons of fun. They're rowdy, they're loud. Great community events. 100%. Love it. My next rodeo. My next rodeo is Bowden. So this weekend's off.
Yeah.
And then we got Bowden. I don't know what draws we've got yet. And then about halfway through the season. Horses are working really good. So super happy with it.
Excellent. I mean, I was there. I saw you. I should have had a picture of it. Oh, shit.
I know.
I should
have. Very smart. Very smart.
I mean, I have a picture. I just didn't have it to put up this week. But I was there. I was there cheering you on in Airdrie.
Yes, you were.
And Bowden, for those of you who remember, That was the place that did the rodeo in the middle of the lockdowns and said, screw the rules. That was Bowden. And it was interesting because at the time, Jason Kenney was still running things.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody mentioned him over the PA system at some point while they were talking about these things. And like by far the biggest boo, even more than the federal government and all the mandates and the QR codes and everything else that was going on, far and away the biggest boo that anybody or anything got that at that rodeo was Jason Kenney.
I remember the Dennis Hall said, the rodeo clown come out and says, I tell you all a joke about COVID, but chances are 98% of you wouldn't get it.
Nice.
Yeah. Well played. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, that's basically it for us, my friend.
So that was awesome. Thanks for having me.
Oh, man, it was great to have you on here. And we got to talk about Bob Gunn. So for those of you, just remember, for all your less than load transporting, you need something from point A to point B. It doesn't even, if your current supply chain is making you say bitch lasagna, you need to call Bob Gunn Transport.
Do milk. Jeez. It's so bad. And why were you talking about a load?
Well, just because if you're hauling with semis, it's, you're full load or sometimes it's LTL, right?
Fair.
Yeah. Yes.
Fair. Get out of here, man.
Okay. Goodbye, everybody.
Peace.